Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're embarking on a deep, documentary-style dive into something that's, well, completely fundamental to our existence. We're going to unpack the psychology, the biology, and the profound, absolute necessity of human hope. It's this invisible force, right? But it literally forms the entire architecture of our resilience. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's uncover exactly how the science of hope actually works inside of us.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever gone through a period in life when everything just seemed to be completely falling apart? The uncertainty feels impossibly heavy, the path forward is totally blurred out, and yet, somehow, you keep going. I mean, think about it. Unlike any other creature on Earth, human beings will wake up the next morning and willingly take another step into the absolute unknown. We try one more time, even when we have zero guarantees about what's coming. It really raises this profound question: why? What is the actual mechanism inside our brains that lets us keep moving forward through the sheer mystery of life?
Look, we've all been there. A relationship that ended, a big career plan that just completely flopped, or maybe just that quiet, nagging feeling that life isn't quite unfolding the way you thought it would. It's really important we pause here for a second, because acknowledging that pain, it's crucial. When our plans collapse, the emotional toll isn't just sadness, it's an actual biological shock to our nervous system when the predictive models we built for our lives suddenly shatter into pieces. Understanding how we bounce back from this deeply human experience of failure, how we get back into forward motion, is exactly where the science of hope begins. Now, we need to draw a massive line in the sand right here. A lot of people confuse hope with optimism, or they think of it as just this passive emotion, like a wish that things will magically get better on their own. But in clinical psychology, hope is rigorously defined as an active, forward-moving mechanism. It's not just wanting a better future, it's the cognitive ability to imagine a better future and actively believe that a path toward it can be carved out. Optimism says things will be fine. Hope says, I am going to make things fine. It's the reason we plant seeds long before we can ever see the harvest. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the late psychologist C.R. Snyder and his absolutely game-changing hope theory. Snyder figured out that human flourishing relies on this sort of three-legged stool: goals, pathways, and agency. Imagine you're recovering from a severe physical injury. First, you need a clear goal, like a vivid vision of walking again. Second, you need pathways thinking, mapping out the grueling physical therapy and figuring out alternative routes when you hit a wall. And finally, agency, that sheer willpower and unwavering belief in yourself to actually push through the pain. Hope is highly active, it's dynamic. Let's zoom out for just a second. From an evolutionary standpoint, hope wasn't just a nice-to-have trait, it was an absolute necessity for our survival. Unlike most animals, humans developed a highly complex prefrontal cortex. It's essentially a biological time machine inside our skulls that lets us imagine futures that do not yet exist. And this astonishing cognitive leap, it's what allowed our ancestors to endure brutal winters and harsh environments. It's what let us make long-term plans, invent agriculture, and ultimately build civilizations. The entire modern world is literally built upon this biological architecture of hope.
All right, moving into Section 1, the biology of motivation, and specifically the neuroscience of belief.
Enter dopamine. Now, you've probably heard dopamine called the reward chemical, right? Actually, scratch that. Modern neuroscience shows us its role is way more complex. We kind of need to redefine dopamine. Evolutionarily speaking, dopamine didn't just flood our ancestors' brains when they finally ate a meal. It spiked when they simply recognized the footprints of their prey. It evolved as the biological fuel for anticipation. It is the invisible engine of human drive that pushes us to track down our goals no matter the distance. And researchers have uncovered something genuinely mind-blowing here. The brain actually releases dopamine when we simply believe achievement is possible. Let me say that again because it's huge. You don't have to achieve the goal to get the chemical release, you just have to believe you're on a viable path. This hit of dopamine generates intense motivation, it sharpens your focus, and it fuels your persistence. It literally transforms the abstract, fuzzy concept of hope into very real, usable psychological energy. It's incredible. Okay, Section 2, the shadow side. What happens when the brain just stops investing?
We really can't fully appreciate hope without looking at the psychological darkness that takes over when it goes missing. And this brings us to a really devastating mental state known as learned helplessness, which is a concept pioneered by the brilliant psychologist Martin Seligman. Seligman discovered that when people experience prolonged hardship or just repeated setbacks they can't escape, their brains physically adapt to that trauma. They develop this absolute clinical conviction that they are powerless. The brain effectively just unplugs and gives up on the future.
Look at how this tragic biological cascade unfolds. First, it starts with repeated setbacks. Next, this deep-seated belief locks in that you have absolutely zero control over your life. And here is the profound biological reality of it all. Your brain, seeing no viable pathway forward, actively stops releasing dopamine. It stops investing energy into taking action, and finally, the person just stops trying. It's so important to realize that giving up isn't a sign of moral weakness. It's literally your biology desperately trying to conserve energy when it thinks all hope is lost. But here is the amazing part. The human mind is remarkably, beautifully adaptable. Thanks to neuroplasticity, even after a deep descent in helplessness, we are capable of incredible emotional recovery. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. It's this phenomenon where people don't just bounce back to their normal baseline after a trauma, they actually undergo profound psychological growth. The brain structurally reinforces new pathways, leading to deeper perspectives, stronger relationships, and a massively enhanced appreciation for life. The mind can just brilliantly rebuild itself.
And the journey out of that darkness, it rarely begins with some massive cinematic epiphany. Hope doesn't need to be grand or dramatic at all. Usually, it starts with incredibly small, everyday sparks of possibility. It's a kind conversation, a supportive text from a friend, a meaningful book that gently shifts your perspective, or honestly, just a single good day after a string of really awful ones. Sometimes that tiny spark is just enough to help your brain visualize a path forward, just enough to generate the dopamine required to take one more step.
Which brings us to Section 3, Historical Resilience and the Sheer Will to Survive. This quote from Viktor Frankl absolutely hits the nail on the head. Frankl was a psychiatrist who endured the absolute darkest depths of human suffering in Holocaust concentration camps. His foundational insights into human psychology were literally forged in this unimaginable crucible. In the camps, he observed a devastating reality. Those who lost hope, who lost their vision of a future, perished quickly. But those who maintained a sense of meaning, some kind of purpose waiting for them on the outside, they somehow found the biological and spiritual drive to survive the unsurvivable. So, grounding this immense philosophy into a more gentle metaphor, we can see that hope is absolutely not toxic positivity. It is not denying your pain or having some naive belief that everything is going to be easy. Far from it. Instead, hope is the courageous, deliberate, and incredibly brave choice to keep searching for light when darkness completely surrounds us. Not because we're guaranteed to find it, but because we believe, deep down in our bones, that it is a light worth searching for.
Inside all of us, there's this quiet, relentless voice. It's the voice of literally thousands of generations of ancestors who survived wars, famine, and staggering loss just so that we could be here, right now, breathing today. When certainty is completely impossible, and when the path ahead is entirely obscured, that quiet voice of historical and personal resilience simply whispers, keep going. Try one more time. The future has not been written yet.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a lingering question. Have you ever gone through a really difficult period where hope was the only thing that helped you keep moving forward? Take a moment today to reflect on your own remarkable resilience. Uncertainty is a fundamental, inescapable part of life, but hope is the magnificent reason we walk into the unknown anyway. It's what makes us so beautifully, wonderfully human. Keep looking for those small sparks of possibility, everyone. Thanks for watching.